So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another segment of Cafecito Part 2 with Jackie on PR and what it deals with and how to be a great PR person if you're interested and come about that. So, welcome, everybody, Jackie again to our segment of Cafecito. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank
So,
you.
in the last segment 1, we talked about a lot of things about you, how you came about being in PR and what makes for good PR. And now we're going to talk about some more relative questions that may touch back and circle back a little bit to what we talked in segment 1, but we're going to extend on it. Ready for it?
Ready?
All right. Okay. So tell me, and this is personally you and not with a customer or anything like that. Tell me when you made a mistake on an account that you learned from that experience. And did the customer ever find out you made that mistake?
So do you want an example of a mistake that I made?
Right. So did you ever make a mistake in your, I can tell you I made a mistake, many mistakes in my career and how, and yes, they all found out about it. But I made it deliberately. So my mistakes were different. I wanted a different outcome and I got the outcome that I wanted. But I know that in your case, you probably didn't want the mistake to happen, but it happened. So did you make a mistake? What was the mistake? How did you fix the mistake? And did the customer ever find out about the mistake?
So yes. So yeah, especially early on in my career as I was just, kind of understanding PR and understanding my role and understanding, what is client facing, what is not client facing. I mean, I definitely made several mistakes. There were some instances where the client, didn't find out that a mistake was made. But then there's other instances where they did find out. One of them specifically when I was quoted in an interview. I'm supposed to be the one passing the information over to the reporter, and instead of just passing it over, she ended up quoting me on something that was said, which really should have been coming from the client, not from me. So of course the client, obviously, when I was quoted in the paper and they read the article, they saw that I was quoted, and that wasn't very fun. Um,
So how
but
did you fix that?
yeah,
All right, guys, technical difficulties, these things happen. You know, like I said in the first segment, it's all about how you spin it, how you hurdle it, how you fix things. And so I told her to log off and she's going to come back in and we're going to pick up where we left off. But I think it was the ghost of that client. If he's dead. If not, it was his aura, his energy came and said, oh no, you're not going to talk about me. Anyways, until she comes back, guys, I am not in public relations. I'm probably am gonna hire Jackie at some point, just so you know, to be my public relations spokesperson because I want my company to grow and I'm going in a different direction. And that's why I brought her in. So I'm gonna admit her back in. I don't know. Anyways, all right. Here we go, people. Welcome to Cafecito Part 2 of 2. No, realistically, this is the continuance of Part 1 where we did start to talk to my guest, Jackie, and she's back again to give us some more insight about PR. So we're starting over. You might see a little splice because we had some technical difficulties, but that's okay. Just like in PR and the things we were talking about, you have to roll with the punches and know how to hurdle things and come back. So we are back. All right. So we were talking about a time when Jackie had made a mistake on a campaign as a PR person and whether that customer had found out about it and what was the outcome of them finding out about it.
and a reporter had asked me a question. Well, I didn't think by answering that question that that answer was going to turn into a quote in the article. So, so that didn't go over very well. I was ended up being quoted in the article, and it wasn't really great quote to be quoted on. And of course, the client did see that. So I learned that, anything you can say could be on the record. and that you kind of have to kind of take a step back and pause and be like, hey, that's a really great question, but why don't I get the client on the phone with you and you can ask them that question directly. That way the client's being quoted and obviously the client can say, you know, whatever it is that they want to say. So that was something I definitely learned back then. Just other things too is just, pitching the right reporters, making sure that, if you're pitching a business story, it's going to the business story. If you're pitching something about food, it's going to the dining and restaurant reporter. I made a mistake one time where I pitched the wrong reporter the story and it didn't go over really well. Not so much where the client found out about it, but the reporter was like, "Hey, you kind of need to know what I'm writing about, you know?" And that goes kind of back to that relationship building. Like, if I'm pitching the wrong reporters, well, now they're going to know, oh, this is the same girl that, pitches me the wrong stuff all the time. She doesn't read my stories. She doesn't know what I write about. But if I'm pitching them stories that they can actually use and write about, and I become a resource, then I'm building the right relationship that's going to help me out, further down the road.
So that gives me two questions. One is, how did you fix the issue with the quote? And two, do you now say to everyone, don't quote me on this?
So I couldn't, so once the quote was already printed in the story, I mean, there was absolutely nothing that I could do about it. So I kind of just had to be like, take a deep breath, hear the client out. Obviously, the client wasn't very too happy, but and then just move on from it. Like I can't just stay upset, stay on that. I have to move on, learn from it, and just not let it happen again. And then the second one is, what was the second question?
The other thing, do you tell now everybody, don't quote me on this?
Yes, yes, yes. I say either don't quote me on it, or that's a really great question. I'd love to put you in touch with the client to help answer some of your questions.
So, but I have seen in print and even on when they speak on on any type of media outlet where they have said, "Oh, we're retracting something. We said something wrong." Did that writer then go back and say, "Oh, this is a retraction. This quote did not come from Jackie," and no?
No, because it happened, like it happened. And now you can do retractions. Like for example, let's say I'm promoting an event and the event's supposed to happen on Sunday and it says Saturday. I can request a retraction on something like that. Depending on if the information is factual and what was printed is not the correct fact. The address was incorrect, the time was incorrect, somebody's title was incorrect. Like those types of things could be corrected. But when someone's quoted, you can't take that back.
Wow. Okay. Now we know, people. Please tell everybody, don't quote me on this. Okay, so as far as industry and knowledge of a company, what makes someone suitable to be in a PR role? Like, do you obviously customer service we spoke about, so that's like number one to know how to actually treat a client or come back to a client or create that relationship. But what other skills would they need to actually be great at PR?
That's a really great question because especially, now as we're hiring, people that are coming out straight out of college and things like that, it's always really interesting to see like who's got the skill sets and who doesn't. Um, you know, being able, well, for one, being organized is really important. We're constantly working on media lists, we're constantly pitching reporters, so just making sure all of those things are really organized. We have the right reporters' names, beats, email addresses, all of that stuff needs to be super organized and keep on top of it because reporters change all the time. So being organized, time management. When you work for a PR agency, you're not just working on one client, you're working on multiple clients. So making sure that you're meeting deadlines for all of the different campaigns, all of the different stories that you're pitching out. Time management is really important because sometimes you'll get stuck working on one and you still have four other clients that need to be tended to on different things. Um, Customer service for sure, like being able to communicate, with the client on an ongoing basis. You don't want the client coming to you with questions. You kind of want to already have their questions answered. So when you're giving them like weekly updates, like making sure it's a very thorough update so that they don't have questions. And if they do have questions, it's very like technical, it's very small, like little things. but really being able to constantly communicate with the client, being able to answer emails quickly. All of those things are super important when you're in a PR role. And then just being able to think creatively, come up with really great ideas, being able to have an opinion on things that might be able to move the needle on different things.
So since you came from something that was not PR related into this position, but you had all the customer skill set from being in retail and management, have you seen anyone in the 22 years you've been in this career get hired because on paper people can look great, great. I've seen that all the time. It's like, oh, you look much better than me on paper, but in reality. So have you seen someone get hired that then it's like they're not a fit?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it happen, it happens. I mean, it happens in any job, where someone gets hired and maybe they're not working at the exact same pace that you really need someone to like, work at, or, maybe they didn't understand something as much as they should have. It happens all the time. I think one of the ways that, we really help people is like, you have to be coachable. You have to be able to have thick skin, take constructive criticism so that you can be better because ultimately everybody wants to see you win. So, and we're, especially working in an agency or working anywhere, you have a whole team that's working with you. So you don't want to not one person be knocked down. Everyone gets knocked down together or everyone gets uplifted together. So I think that just being able to play team, being coachable, being able to take constructive criticism, and just being able to like learn from, mistakes big and small so that you don't make them again.
Well, that's great that you spoke about teamwork because that segments me into my next question, which I was going to ask you. Does only one person get to work on each individual client, or is it a team effort where there's two or three or multiple people working on that same client, but in different aspects?
Yes. So we work in teams and most agencies work in teams. Obviously you'll have your day-to-day person, your senior account executive, so to speak, that's really the one that's kind of looking at strategy and kind of like the big picture. And then you have, other team members that might be more focused on media relations, maybe another team member that's focused on, influencer relations. So everyone kind of has their own role, but we all work together to get to the end result.
That sounds great. I love teamwork as long as my team is open-minded because sometimes I come up with crazy ideas. And so it's like, that sounds very out the box. I'm like, I live outside that box. I built the wall in that, created that box. So it's like I live on the other side of the wall. And that's just me. But so do you guys research the companies you want to target and then promote yourself to them, or do all the companies just come to you, or both?
It's a little bit of both, but I know specifically with us, we've had the honor of actually getting people having, people come back to us. We get a lot of really great recommendations. We get a lot of great referrals. Sometimes someone will leave one company and go to another company, and then they'll come back to us because they already know our work ethic and that, our team and how we deliver results. So it's been, I guess, I don't know, we're really fortunate in that aspect that we're able to get a lot of referrals that come back to us.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because it is so true that when you actually put out a great product, Joe Schmo in the corner can say, oh, but I'm going to do this for $500 less. And you're like, yes, great. I'm going to save $500 and think that that's going to be the best thing since sliced cheese and go there. And then you're like, yeah, that's not a good fit for me. And it's happened with me with clients. Clients have left for a year, sometimes two, and then they're like, oh yeah, but we didn't get the results that you gave us. And they weren't on top of it. We couldn't call them all year round and then be available. It was only during this time of the year and so on and so forth. And they're like, no, we want to be able to text you whenever and you answer right away, or call you and you answer, and we can ask you all kinds of questions throughout the year. And that's so important to have that, like you said, relationship with a client, that they know that they can count on you for much more than what they actually you may even do. They might call you for something that's not PR related, but they know that you have that contact that they need, and they'll still reach out to you. And that's so important. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is always my key to when I sell myself to people. It's like, listen, I'm not that person that you're only going to contact 3.5 months out of the year. I'm going to be available for you all year round, whatever thing you need, even if it's not related to taxes. I do so many other things that you can still come to me for other services. So that's very important. I'm glad you mentioned it. So how do you measure the effectiveness of a PR campaign? What are the actual scales that you guys go by?
So it's really different with every brand, every company wants to see different metrics, but for the most part, we go beyond impressions. Like obviously, we can say we got you in, Forbes.com and they reach, 100 million readers. So yes, we'll share those impressions because obviously that is impressive that we're getting into a national publication with that many readers. But it's really all about impact. So we track metrics like media placements, like how many media placements that we get for your campaign. What is the share of voice? What's the audience reach? What are the engagement rates? What's the sentiment analysis? Obviously, we use different platforms to kind of help us gather some of this data that we share with the client. And then if there's any traffic spikes, following coverage. So if there's a news article that runs online and they have a direct link to your website, how many people went to your website as a result of this article that had this direct link? So there's just a bunch of different metrics that we use. Obviously, if it's a social media campaign, it'd be very different. We're looking at likes, we're looking at comments, we're looking at how many people actually watched your reel, how many people shared it, how many people saved it, like all of those metrics, we try to pull those together and package it so that the client can see, positive results.
And those metrics, I know they're on social media, because obviously I have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and they do share that pie where it's like this many people saw it, this many people engaged with it, this many people shared it. So is that the same with everything else that you do, that same kind of like scale or graph or pie, whatever it is that you guys share?
So in PR, it's a little bit different. Like, again, we're not placing an ad or anything like that where like the marketing, they can see how many people clicked on the ad, did something because of the ad. Like if we're placing a story, for example, in like a Forbes publication, there's all kinds of people that are reading it. So it's hard to say how did this person react to the article because they may not click on that link right away. But maybe they'll later on will think about that brand that was featured in the story. So really, it's all about our storytelling and behind the results. It's not just about metrics. What PR does, it's all earned media because we're not paying for it.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering, how is it that, yeah, okay, 100,000 people read it in Forbes, but how do you track that? You can't. You don't
We
have a
can't.
way to do that. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
interesting.
It's the
So,
same thing. It's also the same thing with like if you're watching the news, like some of the news that have like um those feature interviews in studio where it's like a chef is maybe promoting like a menu item in their restaurant. Well, how many people actually saw the chef on TV and how many people went to the restaurant? Well, unless you're going to the restaurant and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I just saw you on TV," but how many people are actually going to say that? How many people are actually going to say, some of these things? So it's hard to track it. I mean, that's great if they are saying that directly to them, then it's good feedback for us to use. But it's really hard for us to be able to track that. It's more about that brand awareness where they'll think about the brand, going into the weekend if they're looking for a spot to eat.
so speaking about targeting and markets, is there ever like in an article in print where you would put like maybe a QR code, or maybe like a poll where it says, oh, scan here, and then that way you can actually track how many people, or sort of track how many people read it, saw it, engaged with it, and approved it, or whatever. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, we don't really do that when we're pitching our and when an article is placed, again, it's earned. So it's an actual journalist that's writing the article. So it would be up to the journalist to be able to put any of those tracking metrics in there.
Okay. So, in that aspect, then, would you say that what is your current target market right now? Because, this year everything has changed so drastically from what the last presidency, and I'm not taking sides, but I'm just saying we were at a calm pace for 4 years, and all of a sudden we went on a roller coaster ride. So, what has your target market been since this year has happened? And I know we're almost at the end of the year, but this year, how has it changed?
Oh, when you say target market, are you talking about like the types of clients that we've worked with
Yes,
or
yes.
okay. Okay, so we mainly focus on like hospitality, lifestyle, and like restaurant brands. So again, it's all been like very referral based. So like when you work with like one restaurant brand and they move to another restaurant brand, they kind of bring us along with them. So that's really been our focus. So we focus a lot on with working with, getting our word out to like consumers. We work with a lot of franchises, so kind of working a lot with like that franchise audience. And then when we're pitching, national media, we're pitching local media, depending on where they're located, if there's specific target markets that they want us to like really focus on. Influencers, those are all the different targets that we really focus on.
So it hasn't changed because obviously food is still around. That doesn't change. And, cosmetology and all of those services, I guess, that you offer have actually, there's been a spike in, I think, cosmetology over the last 3 years, not just this year. But I think that there's so much more added out there, right? Do you deal with spas at all?
We have this one men's grooming brand that we work with. Um, but I mean, a lot has changed in like the whole kind of self-care kind of
Mm-hmm.
outlet, especially I want to say, especially since COVID. And especially since COVID, everyone really, wants to take care of themselves, pamper themselves. There's a lot more around mental health even.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
think part of that self-care is part of taking care of your mental health too. And again, I'm not a professional. I'm just
But
giving
please
you my
don't quote her.
opinion.
Please don't quote her.
Don't quote me.
Never. Okay. So the market has stayed the same. So then how does your company or you as an individual stay relevant in the market so that when you are approaching, and I understand that you've been in publications where you can show visibility, like, okay, but besides that, how do you show a new client, not an existing client that already knows your reputation, a new client, like, oh, we are top notch because we are so relevant because of XYZ?
So when we get a new client, I mean, again, it goes down to like really kind of understanding their story, and what their goals are as far as, PR and marketing too, because a lot of it does work hand in hand.
Right.
But we don't do the marketing part of it. We do obviously the PR, but it's important for us to know like what is their marketing strategy so that we can kind of try to run our PR programs kind of parallel to that because a lot of the key messages will stay the same and then who their target audience is. So, we kind of take that first, and then from there we start building our stories and building our pitches and kind of looking at what the current trends are to kind of build a story around that we can pitch to media.
Now, do you promise anything in your matrix? Like, we guarantee that we can get you A, B, or C. Is that ever in there?
No, we can never guarantee placements. But I will say this, we are very, very results driven. So if something is not working, we'll change it, we'll spin it, we'll maybe try, maybe what we're going out with as our main hook is not working. We're going to change the hook. We're going to focus on something different. I mean, we're going to change it up however many times we need to get the results, to get the media placements, to get the media coverage that they're really looking for. We don't
And
just say, sorry, we can't do this and move on.
have you ever done that? Have you ever told the client, oh, we can't handle this is not something that we do, and this is not for us, and maybe refer them somewhere else?
No, no. We always want to leave on a good note.
And that is so oh my God, you guys are so great at this because I pitch this all the time because obviously I create corporations and I teach people how to, incorporate and how to do HR and how to do accounting and how to do all of this. If they want to hire me to do it, great. If not, then I teach them how to do it themselves. And it is so important in business and to stay relative in business and to continue to grow. Obviously, I've been in my same profession now for almost 25 years, going 25 years next year. And so, people, when I first started, they were like, oh, you're crazy. You have two small kids. How are you going to leave a W-2 job to do this on your own? And I'm like, I have faith in myself and I am going to make it grow. And I have. And, there are so many aspects to making it grow, and being stagnant is not one of them. You have to go with the trends, go with the flow, not be there at one, I'm only here at level A when everyone else is at M, it's so it's important, like you said, to know your target audience. So I appreciate everything that you have shared with us so far. And of course, we have our last of the segments coming up. So we're going to leave it here for now, and we're going to come back to the conclusion of this segment. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming to Cafecito and being with myself and Jackie and learning all about PR. I've had an amazing experience, and I hope you have too, Jackie. And this is actually, a learning curve, right? Because I don't know, have you been on podcasts before?
Never.
Okay, so yay, Jackie, your first podcast. I love it. I want to be the first to interview you because you always are interviewing the client, right? So now you got
Very true.
interviewed. All right, so we're going to be back to segment 3. Guys, stick around for the conclusion. Bye for now.